I am about to. Oh, okay, am I live? I think I'm live. And I'm also making this picture too big. Let's go smaller and just a little bit big. There we go. Now I can read what I wrote down because I don't want to accidentally leave anything out. And there we go. I have to scroll all the way up to the top of what I wrote down. This is, I know you're annoyed with me already. Um, I'm still experimenting with how to work this silly thing. Anyway, I've been putting off doing a video about my personal UFO and alien experiences, although I had a website about it years ago, and it was on Web TV. I was hoping to reconnect with other people from this event in 1966. And I'm going to go ahead and make this larger and just so I can see it and read the whole thing. Just because that's the best I can do. Let's see. It started out while I was setting the table for dinner around 5 p.m. or so. And when I noticed out the window there was a crowd in the neighborhood in the street. And then I saw what they were looking at. It was a huge UFO. It was coming from the direction of Albany, Maryland, and the sun was not setting yet. It was easily seen, not going away, but coming closer. And the sun glinted off the metal exterior. And I also noticed some marks that looked like it had been burnt, maybe from entering the atmosphere. Excuse me. I called to my mother, and we all went outside to look at it. We lived at 2001 Gainsborough Road in Rockville, Maryland. Our house is situated on a corner lot. The neighbors were all out there. They were pretty upset. I heard some of them saying things like, "Is it cigar shaped? Is it saucer shaped?" and plenty of other frantic shouts. I heard my mother say, "Oh no, not again." So I asked her what she was talking about. She told me that there were flying saucers over Washington, D.C. in 1952. So I said, "Why didn't you tell us?" And she told me that nobody knew what they were, and she didn't think she'd ought to make us afraid or whatever. Flimsy excuse, that's the way she was. She was pretty frightened, and then she sent someone in to get her movie camera, and she used it as she had film in it, so she used it to film some of the approach of the UFO, but started getting really nervous when it was getting closer. So she said we should go in the house and hide. And I said, they can find us in our houses. So she said I was right, and we all piled into the 56 Chevy that was in the driveway. The engine wouldn't start. She panicked again, saying she had heard of cars not being able to run last time. We did go into the house. Next, within moments, we heard an ear-piercing, high-pitched noise, and everyone was putting their hands over their ears, and we saw aliens coming up our front sidewalk. So I ran through the kitchen and out onto the breezeway between the house and the garage, and I saw more of them in our backyard coming towards the back door. So I fled down the basement stairs and locked the door behind me. My younger brother had run into the garage. Our basement was just one large rec room without any walls, some metal shelves towards the back wall, and my brother's mattress on the floor. Both of my brothers slept there. There was a washer and dryer and an unfinished bathroom, really just a toilet and shower stall, but no privacy walls around them. With no place else to hide, I stepped into the shower stall and pulled the shower curtain shut. I could hear my heart pounding, and I was still being deafened by the high-pitched sound coming from the UFO. In a minute or two, the aliens got into the basement. A locked door was no problem for them. And they found me right away. There was no other place to look, not even a closet. I put my hands up over my eyes, and the tall alien pulled my hands down and told me not to look away. Then I looked into her huge black eyes, and I told her I would fight if I had to. She asked me what I was afraid of, and I told her what my father had done to me and how I always fight. And I pulled down on my turtleneck and showed her the bruises on my throat. She was alarmed. It's hard to describe what the facial expressions were since their faces are so different with little musculature. Sorry about that. But I guess I could say there were obvious micro expressions, like her eyes opened wider, and she had you know, that kind of a look on her face. She promised not to harm me and told the smaller aliens with her to stand back, and they obeyed her. She wanted to have me hold my chin up and be very still, and I obeyed her. She inserted a slim rod into my nostril with a tiny round sphere on the end of it. She continued inserting it until I could hear a crackling sound where it penetrated my sinus. Then she removed the rod, and the ball was left behind. Next, she placed a small glob of something cold and gooey on the back of my neck, and it absorbed into my skin. I believe it was a narcotic. After a while, she led me and the other aliens up the stairs, and we met with my brother and more aliens in the breezeway and went out the back door. I noticed it was getting dark, but do not know how much time had elapsed by then. As we followed her towards the shuttle parked in our backyard, my mother yelled out from the kitchen door, "Don't go with them." She said it several times, and she was calling my name. I turned my head towards her and said, "Don't worry, we'll be back in time for dinner," and continued walking. It wasn't like me at all, because I always did exactly what she said, and I didn't stop walking. I just turned my head and said those words while I was walking. So it was like a response that I wouldn't have. Anyway, we went in the shuttle up to the main craft. It was the size of what is now National Stadium in Washington, D.C. Once we boarded, we were led into a large room set up as a classroom, and many other kids our age were there. I asked the tall alien why none of our parents were brought along, and she said, "What we have to teach you is not for them. You are young, and your brainwaves can absorb the information, so you will remember it when you need to. Your parents will not be around anymore when the others come." With that, I listened to information as all of us did with headphones and TV screens, not like regular TVs. We had furniture TVs back then with, big bulky tubes and all that kind of crap. But it was more like the thickness of X-ray film. And we were also shown star maps that were on rolls of film that they unfurled for us to look at. They also showed us that they have underground bases on the far side of the moon. I specifically remember some details of the clothing they wore, as well as the fabric on the inside of the consoles in the ship. It was odd because it was not like our woven fabrics with threads going north and south and east to west, but theirs also had northwest northwest to southeast and so anyway, it was going this way and that way and this way and that way, and it was not the kind of weaving that we do. And I couldn't figure out how they were made. Certainly not on humans made weaving looms. Now that I think about it, I wonder if they didn't have nanoparticles or nanorobots creating the weave because it was so complicated. I don't know how a machine would do it unless it was nanites. Anyway, after some time passed, we were returned to our homes. My parents were very upset. My older brother came in the front door with one of my sisters, and they were excited and trying to tell Mom and Dad about the weird-looking man in the woods that looked like a bug. Mom told them to stop telling lies. I said they're not lying, but Mom would not listen and started putting dinner on the table. She was already totally in denial mode, okay? She did that really often. Then my older brother and Dad said the saucer was taking off, so everyone ran outside to watch, and Dad and my brothers got in the car and tried to follow it. It was out of sight as soon as they it was out of sight really soon, so they turned around and came home for dinner. It was around 10:30 and we sat down to eat. The next day, oh gosh, I forgot something. Before dinner was on the table, my younger brother and my sisters and I were in the basement and we were levitating all around in the basement. And I almost hit my face on a bare light bulb that was hanging from the ceiling. And my brother said, "Be careful." And I was like, "Okay, I'll be more careful." And then I said, "We better stop this because if Mom sees us doing this, she's going to freak out." Well, I didn't use the term freak out. I said, "She's going to get really scared." She was pretty easily scared, and I didn't want her to be afraid of us. So they all agreed, and we stopped doing that. And then we went upstairs and washed our hands and sat down for dinner. And that was really 10:30ish. The next day, as I was riding the school bus to school, all the kids were talking about the events of the night before. The bus let us off at Broome Junior Highway on Twin Brook Parkway, and we went to classes. While I was in science class, 7th grade, with Mr. Smiley, the intercom announced a mandatory all-school assembly in the all-purpose room, which was the gym. When everyone was assembled, some men from the military, I think maybe the Army, but some of them were Army and some of them were not. They came into there, and the highest ranking officer told us we were not to be talking about the events of the night before. He said it had been an advertising blimp and we were forbidden to speak of it again. I was astonished. I did say hello to a young man in Army uniform in the hallway and said my uncle's a master sergeant who did recruitments in town. And I mentioned my uncle's name. The soldier did not speak to me. When we returned to class, I asked Mr. Smiley, why did the Army lie to us, and why did they think we didn't have freedom of speech, and if it was a blimp, why would they care what a bunch of kids said? He told me those were all good questions, but we're not supposed to talk about it. So anyway, we went on with our usual school day and then returned home on the bus. As I approached home, I saw that military men were all over the neighborhood going door to door. One man was questioning my mother at the front gate. I had a sudden fear come over me, and I heard him threatening her. The neighbor had told him that Mom had taken movie films of the UFO, and he was demanding that she hand them over. He was talking in a low voice, but I heard him say they could make her disappear in the desert where nobody would ever find her. That really pissed me off, and I told him, what kind of a way is that to treat my mother? Would you let someone talk to your mother that way? And my mom said, Ginny, be quiet, because she was totally afraid. She was afraid a lot. Anyway, I was very suspicious about the guy, but I said we could give him the film. I went inside I ran into the house, okay, and carefully removed the film from the camera in the front closet with the closet door shut, so it was completely dark. I knew what I was doing. And, I wrapped it up the way you're supposed to. And I brought it out to him. Mom said there was family stuff on there too, and she would want that back. He handed her a business card with a phone number on it to call in a few days. When she did call, they told her the film was corrupt and nothing was on it. I told her it was not because of my handling. I was careful, and they were liars. That same week, I came down with a bad infection in my eyes, pink eye in both eyes, and a full-blown sinus infection. I went to Dr. Gordon S. Rosenberger in Rockville, and he put me on antibiotics. He also told me, watch when you blow your nose. When the color changes, we needed to be calling it because it was really serious infection. I was sick and home from school for several days. And one day I was blowing my nose and looked what looked like and looked at the Kleenex like Dr. Rosenberger told me. And there was a small, round, hard object like a 6 millimeter blackish stone. It was perfectly polished and smooth. I showed it to my mother and she called the doctor. We went back and showed it to him, and he was perplexed. He asked if we had a BB gun. We did not have a BB gun. He placed it in a glass vial and sent it out for testing. We never heard anything about it. Many years after, as an adult, I sent a letter requesting all of my medical records from him and never got any reply. Actually, I've done that a few times. No reply ever. He's probably dead by now, but his relatives should have replied. That was everything that occurred in September of 1966. It may still be possible to find archives in local newspapers where they reported an advertising blimp. Now, I can't go there and look through the libraries and see if there's any archives on microfiche. But I think some of the newspapers in the area probably have archives online, but you have to pay to see something that old. Anyway, it was sometime in September of 1966 in Rockville, Maryland. The newspapers there would be the Washington Post, and there was one called the Evening Star, I believe, and there was also both Rockville and Gaithersburg Gazettes. So if anybody wants to investigate that kind of stuff, feel free to do so. This is the most significant event that I have that much recall on. So I wanted to go ahead and share that, and I'm going to share this video with my brother, who is at work right now, and he might add some details that I've forgotten. He was mostly interested in the aspects of the anti-gravity propulsion systems, and I'm totally not mechanical. I was interested in how the people looked and how they were dressed, and actually I made a little model of them, but I'd have to run in the other room and get it because I'm so prepared. Anyway, I do have a video on YouTube on my I guess it's my Mary Cousins site. And I'll put a link to that so you can see what the little sculpture looks like that I made to resemble the taller female alien. She had really black eyes that were like really wide, like wider than my eyeglass lenses. And her head was quite large, probably up to about like this, and there was no hair. Her mouth was very small, her nose was insignificant. She was really, really slim, practically a pencil. The sculpture I did the hands really badly. They weren't really huge. It's just really hard to make hands with Sculpey modeling compound. Anyway, she had authority over the smaller aliens, and I don't know whether they were young, like children, or whether they were drones, or whether they were the males and the males are small, or really what. I didn't get that information, or at least I don't recall it. Bits and pieces come back to me just exactly the way she told me when I need it. So apparently I don't need to know everything all at once. It was a lot of information, and I am always open to investigating. Sometimes I'll think something and I'm going to have to say it's a speculation because I'm not certain if it was actual information that I got. I do feel pretty confident that when she said that we need this information before the others come so that some of us might survive, she was talking about some invasion. And it was an event that she knew would happen far into our future. And here I'm 60 years old now, and this happened like maybe 2 weeks before my 12th birthday. Um, I have always had a strong reaction to seeing something large in the sky like a blip, but this was way bigger than a blip. Um, if you go to Google Earth and you look up National Stadium, Washington, D.C., it'll bring up the National Stadium, and you can see how huge it was. And I'm comparing it to that now because when I went there a few years back to see the Pope when he came to Washington, um, as soon as I entered the building and was going up ramps, I had a real strong flashback about being on the ship. It was so similar in size and expanse. Um, I know that that's the size it was. So if you can imagine National Stadium floating in the air, this was huge. And when people say, "Oh, put your arm out at a distance and can you cover it with your fist?" My father said, "Oh, you'd have to open a newspaper to put it in front of your face to not see it. Why don't you just close your eyes to not see it?" I mean, it was enormous and it was in our faces. There it was. So this was a real significant event, and the military came in and told us it didn't happen. It was just an advertising blimp, and everybody better shut up. And, I'm 60. I'll be 61 in a couple of months. I'm disabled. I crochet a lot. I go to church. I mean, if they want to shut me up, good luck with that. I don't frighten that easily. I might have immediate responses to fear. I'm more likely to have delayed reactions to fear. Generally, I can step up and tell people where to go. I am a fighter. I'm not wanting fights, but I don't back down. So anyway, be loving and kind, be safe, and share information if you'd like to. Ask questions if you want. Real questions, not anything stupid or mean, because, I'll just delete that stuff or even maybe report people if they're very mean, because I'm not up for that. I'm not here to fight. I'm not here to tell anybody what to believe. I just want to share. And hey, if you were there, tell me. I'll be glad to talk to you about this. And we can do it in emails, or I'll give you my phone number if I know who you are. Maybe somebody that I went to school with. And I've went on Facebook and looked at and joined the site for Twinbrook. I'm sorry, it was Broome Junior High on Twinbrook Parkway. It's not a school anymore. It's like a government building. They have a clinic there for addicts, and they have a thrift shop and stuff like that. So it's not like we have reunions with junior high anyhow. But I don't remember so many people. I remember just a few. And one of them I've never been able to find. And I won't mention names because that wouldn't be very nice of me. You all be safe, and God bless. Bye-bye.